And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome into another episode of the 419, powered by our new friends at WGTE. Matt Killam, Gretchen DeBacker, I'm Kevin Mullen. Huge thanks to our sponsors. WeTro Wealth Management has been with us from day one. WorkSpring, we appreciate their support and continuing with us here on WGTE. We've also got Toledo Refining Company. Tarda, I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Maybe.
And thousands of anonymous supporters.
It's a grassroots
Nailed
situation.
it. Nailed it.
That's right.
So it's an exciting, it's still part of the new beginning for us,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
But an exciting time. And we're going to still hang on to pieces of our original podcast,
Right.
which is the surprise guest. But I guess before we dive into that today, you know, it's kind of that weird time of year where I feel like blue skies just go gray, and I don't know when we're going to get the blue skies back, but I'm...
Maybe never.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Welcome to optimism. Yep, that's great. You can always count on Gretchen to bring that. What is it? So I remember when I was in high school, one of the teachers, the first time I ever heard somebody say they had seasonal affective disorder. First of all, I don't think it's very nice that the initials of that are just sad. Like, I don't think that's okay. Or it's really clever, I'm not sure.
It's the most appropriate, yeah.
But literally, he had a light that he put on his desk.
Sure.
That,
It was probably all you kids that were doing that too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's possible.
And you were
Yeah.
homeschooled. Yeah. So that is...
So that makes it even weirder.
What gets you through this? I mean, obviously, you're an outdoors guy, right? So, like, what gets you through this?
Yeah, I don't know. People do sort of bemoan the snow and the cold, which is, to some, not the best, but it is dark. Like I said, I should say, conversely, it's light about 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And that is actually the most challenging thing. So WorkSpring, I know as a partner in the show, has a lot of wellness components to it, but we could do Wellness Wednesday every day and have it be topical. So
We could just bring those lights in and put them on the desk.
that's right.
Just sit under 'em.
Underlight our faces.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think you just kind of grin and bear it and give yourself some grace and know that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the going to work when it's dark and coming home when it's dark.
Yeah.
And then you've been home for like an hour and you're like,
Yeah,
well,
and
I
again,
guess
you're
I'll
on
go
a-
up to bed. And it's 7:15.
Right.
And then I just do.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Yeah.
See, there was
But
there's a few years when I lived in Texas, like, it would blue skies year round, right? And it would get cold a little bit, but it was still blue skies. And
Yeah.
like, that's the piece that for me, that's the hardest part. The cold, I feel like I can handle, I can bundle up for that. It's the gray sky when you look out your window, and it's like when it snows and it's that first snow and it's white and it's clean, it's great.
No.
And then cars start throwing stuff and it gets gray and dirty and
Are your kids affected by the time change, like the fallback?
oh
spring
man,
forward?
it's the worst. It is. If you give me a full moon and a time change on the same day, I'm just opting out of parenting. Like I'm gonna find a way to just
Figure
go
out how to
away.
get to
and
school.
Danny can do it on her own. She's got this.
Yeah, I don't talk to my kids most of the year, so it's not a noticeable difference for me.
Only
Yeah.
when it's sunny out. So
Yeah,
you got,
I don't even know
you got-
their ages. To be perfectly honest.
All right, so we are going to be doing
Oh,
a
boy.
surprise guest today.
Yes.
Matt and I have no idea who's coming in. Do you want we're going to go to break here a little
Okay.
bit, but do you want to just give us a quick teaser of like maybe drop one hint?
Give us the guess who hints.
Okay. It's a man.
Nailed it.
This is a person I think that you both know.
Okay.
This is a person well known in the community, but I'm interested to get to the origin story today.
Okay. We're going to find that out. We'll be right back with another episode of the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from WeTro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at WeTroAdvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back to the 419 on WGTE. Gretchen, it is your surprise guest today.
Yes, and
Usually a disappointment.
not usually. The guest can hear you at this point, so I would.
Different.
Well,
guy.
we didn't say the guest was a disappointment. We just said you are usually.
Understood.
yeah.
Understood. So this person, as we've teased here, is a man.
Okay.
He's been in the community for a long time. He's well known to many people, and as I said, I'm interested in getting to sort of how this person became what he is. But he's a teacher. He was a teacher for a long period of time. Sure. And then he became what I would characterize as one of probably the best development people in our community, fundraisers in our community.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
He's responsible for the next big thing
All right.
that took place at the Toledo School for the Arts.
All
Our
right.
special guest today is Dave Gierke.
Yeah.
Dave,
It's early.
Yeah.
This is really early now.
Dave, welcome.
welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
How are you?
I do have a bone to pick. Dave is a friend, which is a sign that I don't know how to pick friends. But Dave, I called Dave. I had somebody bail on me, and I called Dave, and I was like, "Hey, man, I need. Will you do this for me?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't."
That's pretty good.
I get it.
That's pretty good.
You get it now? It all makes
Yeah.
sense.
So you said
We're
no.
kind of friends.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's usually how it goes.
Good.
So you said no to Matt, but you said yes to Gretchen.
Yeah, I had already previously said yes to Gretchen.
Right.
Okay.
So Dave was
I
part.
love that you kept that. Sorry, I love that you kept that secret, right? Like you didn't tell Matt, like, oh, Gretchen's already asked.
It was hard, man. I wanted to tell everybody at work, too, because I get excited about this, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was on camera. I thought it was just, my technology
You won't
knowledge.
be on camera.
That works out great. Works out great. I have a face for radio.
That's right. Yeah. Space for microfiche.
So Dave, let's start back sort of before any of us certainly knew you. I know that you eventually became a teacher and were one of the first people that were working at Toledo School for the Arts. But let's go back. Where is little Dave Gierke from?
I grew up on the east side, right in front of the refinery. I know it's hard looking at me now, but yeah, I was an East Toledo kid, and in the middle of junior high, I moved to Genoa area. Went to Genoa High School, and
Was that a weird transition?
it saved my life. It was
Okay.
really cool.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Tell me about that.
I felt like I just a whole new world opened up for me. I was able to, back then we were hunting and doing all that
Yeah.
crazy stuff, and I just felt like I was just becoming a little bit more adult-like.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Sure. And then you stopped.
Yeah, and I grew up in the drum and bugle corps. I was in the drum and baton corps when I was little, and then I was in the Glassman drum and bugle corps, so that was my background.
Your folks
And,
into this kind of thing? How did you?
My dad was always into really weird instruments. He was a vocational teacher at Macomber High School, and he always liked non-traditional instruments, and he turned me on to like steel drums. And my first drum instructor was a drum corps guy. He lived in my neighborhood, and I wanted to do that. And when I was 12, I finally auditioned and I got in, and we played at the International Festival that used to be on the east side at the sports arena. And I always wanted to do that. And so I finally got in. I'm playing bass drum, man.
Yeah, sure.
Big deal. I get my uniform. I learned how to play the bass drum part for Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America. And so we go there to do that. I'm 66, so whatever year that was.
Sure.
I thought you were saying at the time. And I was like, that's a
really
interesting
long time
view.
ago.
You look terrific.
It was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
So we're on the bus, and the director gets on. He said, "Suit up. We are going. We're gonna warm up outside real quick, and then we're going in." And I'm super excited. I've been wanting to do this since I was like 8, and I'm thinking, where are we gonna suit up? And I'm sitting on this bus. and the uniform's hanging in the window, and I reach over to grab my uniform, and I'm thinking, where am I going to suit up? And I look, and the drum corps was 12-year-olds through 21-year-olds, and young women were standing on the seats of the bus down to their bra in underwear.
And that's when you realized you wanted to be in a band.
And I was like, oh, I want to do this forever. I lost my mind. It was insane.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we won't get deeply into that, but
It's probably safe for all of us.
yeah. And so then I went to UT. I was a music major. I didn't do very well. Bob Bell, God bless his soul.
Yeah.
He was the percussion guy at the time.
Oh, really?
And he said to me one time, Dave, if you don't increase your intimacy with this instrument, I believe we can go no further. And it was the marimba. And I'm like, man, I don't want to play the marimba. I just want to hit things. I want to be a drummer.
For sure.
So they basically said, yeah, you better find a different major. And I always wanted to be a band director because I thought that would be really cool.
Sure.
But I think it was divine intervention, really. But yeah, so I quit school. My band was playing a lot. I was playing in a little combo in Detroit and Toledo, working for Kip Gierke.
What kind of music? What kind of band was it?
Top 40 dance music. We were in it for the money. We were not artists.
That's why we do this.
And yeah. Well, you know, I would have worn my colors had I known it was permissible. But yeah, so we started playing it. We were playing in Detroit and Toledo, and we had an opportunity to go on the road. And so this guy by the name of Angel Gomez in Detroit,
Great name.
big cigar,
Sounds
cool
legit.
car. I'd probably be doing that right now had I not found another
Sure.
route, booking bands in Detroit. So he started us in Nashua, New Hampshire, and we went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 12 weeks.
Oh my
And
gosh.
back then you could play six nights a week.
Yeah.
And so you travel on Sunday.
How-
Atlantic
how old-
City.
How old were you when you were doing this?
22,
Okay.
23 maybe.
All right.
Was it good money then?
Who cares?
Yeah,
true.
yeah, that's
Amazing.
exactly right. As I told my daughter when I was teaching her how to drive, we were having this conversation, and she said, "Dad,
Why are you playing that drum?
why did you play music for so long if you always talked about how poor you were?" And I've tried to be a really good dad and say something intelligent. And I said, "Well, there's multiple forms of currency for artists and musicians, especially in the '80s." And she was driving, and she goes, "Stop talking." And and I'm like, I just didn't know what to do. But
So
yeah,
how long? So you did that on the road tour, and then how long in
we
total?
agreed. Yeah, we agreed we were going to do it 1 year. And 11 years later, we were still doing it.
No.
So here I am in my early 30s, wondering what's going to happen when I have to grow up. And then I kind of fell in love with this woman from Toledo and wanted to spend more time here. And I started coming back more.
How'd you meet her?
On a bus.
So that didn't work out.
Sorry, down?
So that didn't work out.
She's here
And,
today. Come on out.
So that didn't work out, and so I ended up. I used to hang out. When you're a musician, you hang out at music stores all day.
right.
And I hung out at a place called Rick's Drum Shop on Sylvania Avenue. Rick Klein owned it. It's his little place, and one guy worked for him. Dave Fogel was one of the guys that worked for him, and he and I became very good friends. He was an incredible drummer. I was a terrible drummer. I was good for the '80s, but this guy was a real great musician, and we became partners and bought the drum shop. And then a year later, moved over to Monroe Street, right next to the Beirut.
That's
and
my
we
old stomping
opened
ground.
a place called Dave's Drum Depot.
So was yours.
Yeah,
I had
well,
no
there were
idea.
two of us, two
Yeah.
Daves. The apostrophe was at the end, plural possessive, which is the most. It was the most expensive English lesson I've ever had in my life.
Yep.
Is that legitimately, it was after the S?
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's 2 days.
Yeah, no, thank
And
you.
we're
Yeah,
all
so-
learning today.
Yeah. So the
I
graphic,
mean, whenever I hear somebody talk about Dave's Drum Depot, I don't think about it being Dave's Drum Depot.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't pronounce it that way either.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So when what
That's
was
safe.
the thing that made you said you realized you had to figure out something to do when you were going to grow up? What were the signs? What was happening that was making you think I maybe can't do this either anymore or forever? That you had to make another
There was
plan.
a lot of them. There was a lot of them. No money. I mean, there was money, but we didn't. You don't manage it very well when you're on the road. You try to
Totally.
entertain yourself
Yes.
in various ways because there's a lot of downtime.
You're camping.
And yeah, we had band houses. We had really nice facilities by the time we had been doing it for a few years. The facilities were good. I saw guys doing it that were too old to be doing it and couldn't admit to themselves they should stop doing it.
Yeah, that's what we try to tell Gretchen before every show.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things, and I honestly was I think it was 1990 or 91. I came back for an extended time during the summer, and Toledo Fest was going on.
Yeah.
And it was right on Water Street where Channel 11 is back in there. And Buddy Rich was playing, and I went down to see Buddy Rich. Of course, you have to go see him because he was the guy. And I fell back in love with Toledo, and I'm like, this doesn't suck. I love this town.
Yeah.
Why would I do anything else? And so that's what made me want to stay around Toledo a little bit more. Then the drum shop. I taught every drum line in Northwestern Ohio as a side thing. In retail music, nothing happens in the summer. So my parents had a motorhome, a little fifth wheel. They took it out to Defiance High School and put it on the marching band practice field. And I lived there for a week teaching drumline.
Yeah.
I've never really had a job.
Yeah.
I've never
What
had
was
a
the
legit
name of your
job.
band?
Touched.
Touched.
Love it.
Oh man, I would have brought cool pictures.
Yeah.
With an apostrophe at the end.
No. I just like,
All right.
no. Especially today. No.
No, definitely not.
No, it's been really fun. Marty Porter in 1999. I had already so when I went to my drum shop, I got kind of bored, and so I finished my degree. And my degree was an education degree in public affairs and community services. So I was in my 30s, and then I had a stint. I had a lot of part-time jobs, and I was very diversified in my income streams because they were all very small. And I was the flag instructor for the UT marching band. Which is really fun.
I would like to see you doing some flag work.
I don't really do a lot of flag work anymore.
Yeah.
Is there video of that
Thanks for
anywhere?
asking. God, I hope not.
Yeah.
That's a unique skill that I got to believe you didn't know what you were doing when you started that. Was that just like?
I had been in drum corps. So in drum corps, when you're playing in the drum line, and you know the girls are all the flag people, you screw around and do that stuff, and you just mess around with it. So
Do you get to miniature flags and practice in your living room?
Yeah.
Sure.
I could tear a broom up, you know. I could do some cool stuff with the broom.
Now, does this leak into batons as well, or are you strictly a flag?
No, batons is a totally different
Yeah.
thing.
What? Why?
Okay. Yeah, I just wondered. Because that's also in a band.
That is a good question.
Dave, I'm sorry on behalf of the show that we have to get a time question.
I didn't know the batons was going to cross the line.
I feel like if you ever have to play the two truths and a lie.
Yes.
You would be a king.
Everything you've said
true.
so far
Is a lie.
would make you win the game.
Everything you said is a lie.
Yeah,
No, but like
nobody would ever believe it.
No.
Yeah. I was once the director of a flag troop.
Corps.
Yeah.
Flag
Yeah.
Corps.
Yeah.
University of Toledo.
Yeah.
I think 6 years.
The fact that a grown man is allowed to live in a camper on a school field is, in and of itself,
Was
Yeah.
a crazy part of your story.
not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
No, it. Yeah.
That would not go over well. All right,
it's a
listen,
little
so let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about kind of that transition from kind of where you were to where you are,
Got me
and
a
the
real
lessons that you learned through touring, through entrepreneurship, through all of that kind of led you to be where you are today.
Yep.
All right,
Cool.
we'll come back with Dave Gierke on the 419.
To me, community means connecting to others.
What will it really take to bring peace to Toledo's neighborhoods?
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
It's all chapters in a book.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Brings back memories that you don't think are there, you know.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
The people
of Toledo have really become family. You know, they walk in and it's just like, hey, it's so good to see you.
Hello there and welcome to a WGTE Public Media Town Hall meeting.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
I love PBS Kids.
Welcome back to the 419. We're speaking with Gretchen's surprise guest, surprise anymore, Dave Gierke.
Dave, it's so funny because when I was wanting to invite you, I've always thought, and I'm happy that we've now learned this, that this guy was in a band. Like, don't you guys just think that he's like the guy that like gives the vibe of a guy that's been in a band, in a rock band before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you came back
in a good way.
In a good way,
In
that's
all
in
the
a good
good
way.
ways.
When you came back to Toledo, were you like in and around these other guys that were doing those, and in the clubs around here doing the other bands in the 80s and 90s? Yeah.
Yeah, you would. I live in Oregon, so Frankie's was the stop.
Oh,
on the way
yeah.
home.
Oh, my gosh.
And Frankie's really didn't start cranking until about 2:30.
Yes.
And, yeah, so.
We used to go every Wednesday to see the Rivermen when they were playing there.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Is it like
repoed
Riverdance?
I repoed that guy's drum set one time.
You did?
Yeah, and luckily I waited till the end of his show. You know, I could have done it where he didn't have any drums in the last set. Yeah, when I owned the drum shop, I would go. Yeah, and when you own a music store, you want those. That's your client base.
Sure.
Right? So, yeah, and we were a top 40 cover band, and people don't always know that the reason the whole top 40 name came about, you were required to play. The majority of your material had to be from a top 40 list of Billboard. You would use Billboard. And luckily for us, like while we were out playing, the Euro Billboard came out. They would add that to the charts. So we were able to do Depeche Mode and that kind of stuff, which felt a little bit more progressive. So I always envied, I had a place in the old West End for a short period of time, out of necessity. And there were a bunch of musicians in there that were original musicians. Chad Smith, Chris Arducer, all those guys that were making music. And I just thought they were the guys.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to be in their immediate milieu. And they were always happy to be around us because we could afford to buy pizza.
Sure.
Because they were really starving artists. They were really in the trenches. And yeah, so I felt like, from a musical standpoint, there were no original thoughts in there. You know, I was a commercial musician. I was taking photos at the mall, you know.
So you transitioned to your, quote, adult career. You get your education degree. You start teaching immediately at Toledo School for the Arts?
I started subbing. Toledo Public put me in as a long-term sub at East Toledo Junior High. And I was super excited because I'm from the East Side. You know, I had an earring, I had cool hair. I thought they were all going to dig me, and they saw me as the antithesis of what you know.
Just fresh meat.
They didn't like me.
Yeah.
You know, and it hurt my feelings.
For sure.
Those seventh graders can be pretty brutal.
They are. That is the roughest group.
Yeah.
Period.
It's crazy. Junior high kids, man, they're 13-year-old boys are absolute vermin to this day.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I subbed off and on, and then I did 10 weeks at LaGrange Elementary so I could get my certification. And when I student taught there, I went to UT, and when I student taught there, it was eye-opening. It was amazing.
But Dave, it's not necessarily hand in glove that people that perform also can teach. What makes you able to do that? Well, I mean, some of it obviously was based on necessity.
Well,
sure,
I don't think
but
there's anybody that ever said I was a good teacher.
And no one was going to today.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Everything's a performance, right? You know.
Yes.
The reason you saw me across the room recently at a thing was because I just popped out of my office because it wasn't my thing. They were just doing it in our space, and I had to work. So like it can be grueling. Anything could be a job.
Yeah.
People are like, "You're crazy. Why would you come off the road playing music?" It's a job. It's like it's you know. People would say, "What's your favorite song?" And I'd say the last one. You know,
Yeah.
because it's time to get out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, do you consider yourself, or have you always considered yourself to be an extrovert?
Yeah, I think so. I've always liked attention. Yeah,
But you're still plugging in. Always have been able to at least listen and teach. Tell me about the satisfaction of that. I mean, kids are a part of your life, and empowering them to recognize their talent.
Working with marching bands and specifically with the drum line, they're kind of like the football team of the marching band. They're like the, they goof off a lot.
All right.
And they're silly. I always enjoyed that. And so I was always an educator, but it was more alternative. I didn't have the certification or any of that stuff. And I really always enjoyed that because we could talk about things the band director couldn't talk about or the other teachers.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't employed by the school, so we could talk about, I was like the band boosters paid your wages or whatever.
Sure.
And when I came to TSA, Marty Porter offered me a job there while I was at my drum shop. And I said, I'll try it. So I tried it part-time. And those kids really needed, and they probably all do, but they really needed some more hardcore education about, I had 13-year-olds that were outwardly discussing being sexually active. And I'd be like, what is happening?
Yeah, sure.
And so, I would do things that were not traditionally accepted, stuff that you didn't cover in health class, so I always enjoyed that. And I think it worked.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because we're talking 99, 2000, 2001 were the 3 years that I taught the most at TSA.
And you made it through the Y2K disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a relief.
But those kids are still connected with me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
They're in their 40s now.
Yeah.
Trauma bonding, I think, is what they.
What is it?
Don't listen to her.
Trauma
bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
And they helped us put the place together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why
Well,
we
let's
have
back
this
up
really
real quick and talk about, just in case any of our listeners haven't, or viewers don't know what TSA is. Can you tell us, give us a brief history, sort of what it was back there in 1999?
Yeah, in 98, there was a law in Ohio that allowed charter schools to exist. So this group of creatives in Toledo, people that worked with the rep, people that worked with the ballet, all those little pods of organizations that service the arts, wanted to start a school. And that was their in. And they hired this guy by the name of Marty Porter. Everyone in the arts knows who Sarah Jane DeHoff is. She put up the first money to start the place, so they could pay that guy a salary when they first started. I think he had 6 months to put a school together.
Wow.
They rented 2 floors at the Secor building. When he walked me through to convince me to be his percussion guy, there were empty rooms.
Yeah.
And there were empty rooms on the first day of school. I had an empty room and $300. So.
And that was the first location was the Secor building.
The Secor building. We were there until 2005.
Okay.
Also, a good name for your second band. Empty room and $300.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, empty room and $300.
It's a good name.
It was amazing because the parents that came, they wanted something special for their kids.
Yeah. And the place.
The place. We couldn't make payroll. I remember the school not being able to make payroll because of some glitch at the state level that they didn't get a check. And the board members reached in their pocket, pulled out their personal checks, and wrote checks in order for Marty to make a deposit and keep the place going.
Yeah.
And those are the legendary guys. They have the star on the Walk of Fame and all that stuff,
So you're teaching percussion.
Percussion, and we were blending it with the academics. And it really spoke well to me because I've always been a drum nut. And the more drums that I would collect, I would try to learn about them. I remember a conversation I had with my dad. I was on the road, and I found this snare drum, and everything was wooden. And I asked him about it, and there's always a date stamp on the inside. And I said, it's date stamp 1942. But everything's wooden. And he's like, well, hey, didn't you know that in 1942 the war was going on and only 10% of non-war items could be manufactured, only 10% could be metal. And I'm like, duh, no. And I still have that drum because I remember that. And I think when you become passionate, if you become passionate about anything, digital technology, if you become passionate about clay and making things, and you really study it, everything else falls in line.
Yep.
And that's the premise of TSA, arts integration.
So it's arts, it's education, and certainly with the arts, the performing, written, musical arts, theater, everything, and the students.
Theater, dance, creative writing, music, and visual art.
I was going to say that one of the other things, not to be dismissive of, and also not to generalize, but it takes an unusual or a unique person to be the artist that you are and also run a business, right? Creating or having an understanding of the economics or adding commerce to a skill or a calling isn't always hand in glove. So what's happening on Adams Street is also giving kids or entitling them to say what you do is of value and it's worth this.
Absolutely,
and
artists have value.
And this is a model. You create an asset. This is what you do is unique and it is worth something, and this is the model for selling it.
That's the whole purpose of the portal on Adams Street.
Yeah.
The reason we built that portal, it's a gallery, it's a maker space, it's a school store, and it's a performance space.
So when did you move to the Adams Street location?
We moved to, it's actually 14th Street,
it's the back,
14th and Adams.
Yeah.
We moved there in 2005 and we condoed the top 2 floors.
Okay. And then it was in 2023 that the whole new space opened, but when did you start the development of that new space?
It was kind of like, it was a natural progression. I remember Marty Porter saying, all these kids aren't going to end up on stage. We need to find training for them in the ancillary positions of the industry. So there was space on 2nd floor that we purchased, and we built a recording studio.
Yep.
I call it the seamstress shop, but it's really theater, costuming, and fashion design.
Yeah.
Then a scene shop, and so all of those things, all of those ancillary positions, a ticket office, a school store. Our school store, we had a school store ever since we moved in there.
Yeah.
But it was on 3rd floor or on 2nd floor, so only people coming into the building would go to the school store.
Yeah.
So we realized after a few years, this is ready for the public.
Yeah.
And I'm not a smart guy.
Agreed.
It's really based. It's really based on 3 things: fans, friends. And once you become friends with somebody, you can figure out if they could become a funder.
Whew, I was worried about that last app.
Yeah.
Not on WGTE.
We got some FCC stuff. I was like, oh, dude, bring us home.
No.
I remember I was working for the mayor's office at the time, and you and others from TSA came in and had the blueprints and the drawings and the designs, because there was, many people know, it's an extraordinarily complicated process to do what you did there. For the development, for the money, for everything. But
it's amazing.
It was a transformational project.
Absolutely.
For Adams Street. You could see it at the time, but that has come to fruition. That has actually happened. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I just want to back up a little bit because I want to get there.
Okay.
But I think where we are in the story, you're still teaching percussion. So how did this happen? Matt, talked about, being a drummer and being good at business or being, moving to teacher, but for you to move into this fun development role that you're in now.
I've always been a hustler. It's hard to believe. And I would monetize anything that I could get my hands on, just for survival's sake in the early years. So I think I've always thought entrepreneurially. One time I went to get my driver's license and the lady asked me my occupation. I said entrepreneur, and she said, "Can you spell that?" And I said, "Self-employed," because I couldn't.
Right.
And I still struggle with
doctor. Right.
So I've always thought that way, and I think artists that think that way. You take Jeff Stewart. Jeff Stewart knows how to survive and do great work and create stuff. And the most important thing is to let our students know that that's important, that the arts have value. I tell them, if you're putting the Ohio State logo on somebody's garbage can, it's because they can't do it. You should be at least making plumber wages, because you can't be a plumber either. So, I think they get that. So the entrepreneurship thing has always crept into the work that we do. I had a group of kids that played on buckets when we first started, when we were next to the Sea Corps. And the Sea Corps would be having some convention or something in the middle of the week. And our kids would be, I called them punks in the alley. There's a little space between the two buildings. They'd be down there because it reverberated and sounded really cool.
Yeah.
And we had a bucket. They would throw money in the bucket. And the kids would be like, oh, it's $62, man, what are we going to do? And I'm like, let's buy a new snare drum.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we started doing that. We went through 5 development directors in 4 years because they didn't understand the culture. And I'm glad you asked that question. There was a guy by the name, he still exists, he's alive and well, a guy by the name of Glenn Richter who ran the United Way. Bow tie, cat was clean, man. He and I were from 2 totally different worlds. And he was on the development committee. And he taught me so many things. When we moved into that new building in 2005, we were all having cocktails at Manhattan's and talking about things.
With the students?
And yeah, of course. And I said, we need to build a big fence around this place with a guard shack. Unless you have the sticker, you can't get in.
You said that?
I said that. And Glenn Richter goes, or we could do the more noble thing, David. And I'm like, what's that? He said, we could help transform this neighborhood. And I remember getting goosebumps, and I'm like, this is why this guy's so cool. And we started on that. We started joining committees, the Uptown Association, and we started getting involved in all of that.
Being present.
And so when we talked about the next big thing, and for the city, it was community development, it was workforce development, it was income and marketing for the school. Yeah. Right?
So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new space and the next big thing, and what's coming up in the future for Toledo School for the Arts with Dave Gierke. You're watching and listening to the 419.
Woohoo! Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And Tarda, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarda.com.
Welcome back into the 419. We're speaking with Dave Gierke from Toledo School for the Arts. He was Gretchen's surprise guest today.
Yep.
You were talking before we took the break about kind of that transition into the development fundraising space. I mean, I guess I think about, going back to, the guy who went from playing drums to say I can lead a flag corps. You were.
This is a bigger transition than that.
You obviously saw it done and saw it done well and saw it done poorly. Is that how you learned to do this, or where did you get that from?
Maybe I remember seeing Snoop Dogg's reality show with his family, and his wife said something to him.
That's exactly how I thought this was going to start.
He said, he said under his breath, "Don't say what I can't do." And that's always kind of been. And I'm like, he just said it. He just said exactly how I feel on a daily basis.
Yeah, but there's a certain amount of ego that allows for what you just said, but also a healthy ego that has the ability to take in information, right? You wanted to do these things, but I've never heard you in the time that I've known you, which is now over a decade, say, I got this. You know what I mean? Like you were able to listen to the gentleman, your relative mentor, those are my words, but it certainly sounded that way. Like you had to be a vessel for information. You're a hustler, but you had to take in to put out.
Yeah, because it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me. I still live on the east side.
Yeah, sure.
I tell the board of directors, hey man, I don't know. They just took the wheels off my house,
Yeah.
But
you got the vision.
Well, you know what? It's a shared vision. There are a lot of people standing behind me. I always like to talk about me jumping up on a great big giant trampoline and thinking I'm way too high. And I look down and the board of directors is sitting around saying, go ahead, go ahead. I mean, the teaching staff, the people that get it. And we're not for everybody. It's a little bit lower pay scale. and it's a lot of work, and the expectation is you put your whole self in.
Yeah.
But to your point and to your lesson from the 80s is there's different forms of currency.
Yeah.
There's a young person in my life who is very dear to me that this is certainly not based on intellect, but this TSA is one of the places that they are the most comfortable. It is a home for them, and I think going to another high school, it would have been a rough road. So, I mean, this is maybe micro for this part of the conversation, but Dave, when you think about a kid, when we talk about this show, we talked a little bit about Howard Stern. When he thinks of an audience, Howard Stern used to think that he was talking to himself as a younger person or as a listener. When you think of a TSA kid, either now or who you're wanting to encourage to attend, who is that person? What do they look like? What do they do?
They could look like anybody. I think it's just our kids gravitate to our place because they don't feel like they fit in. And I remember saying it to a kid one time, "Why do you love it here so much?" And he said, "Because here, at my old school, I was a freak, and here everybody's freaks.
Yeah.
And even you guys."
You're right.
And I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute," And then I think about, I have my promo photos of my band on the wall. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. You were touched.
But I think that it's an alternative culture, and we're preserving that culture.
Yeah.
It is critical.
And it is an amazing space. If you want to talk a little bit about the new building, now more the focus is on Adams Street, at least for the public. You have the gallery space, as you mentioned. You have the Black Box Theater. You have the meeting spaces, the studios. How has it been? What have you been? I mean, I think I went to an event there once where there were cars even in there that were displayed.
That was the opening thing.
Yeah.
The building was originally Willie's Overland Factory.
I was going to ask. Okay.
120 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the finishing plant for non-war vehicles. They did the upholstery and the painting there. And that first floor, if you go back in history, our architects found all this history along with our social studies department. Kids studying the building that they're in, they did the research on that building, and that was a showroom. And we have one of the original pictures of the building where there were cars in that space.
Yeah.
Even the sign, the portal sign, coming down, they call that a blade sign because it's two-sided and it sticks out. I learned all this stuff by doing this, being involved in it. So that blade sign used to say Overland on it. So this is kind of an homage to that whole opening that space
Cool.
up. That was fun.
Yeah,
a car show.
And what kind of things are happening in the Black Box Theater? And describe what a Black Box Theater is for people.
A Black Box Theater is a blank slate for mostly theater people, and you could do anything you want in there. And so we built it. It'll hold up to 400 people. Our department tries to book outside shows. We brought Crystal Bowersox in, Ross Gay, the noted poet, nationally renowned poet, was just recently there. And we try to bring outside shows in to create income for the school. There's a gallery, and that show changes out at a minimum once a month. The gallery is very active and doing great. Then there's a school store, and everything in there is made by students. It's a workforce development program called Art Force, where kids can stay after school and work for Art Force. Silk screening t-shirts, building glass, doing all that kind of work. The place is open Tuesday through Saturday, noon to 6. We have regular retail hours.
Yeah.
The public can come into the portal, but they can't go into the school.
Right.
The school can come into both because it's part of the school.
Do you have students, for example, the gallery space? That's a very specific hanging art, fine art in a gallery is a very specific skill set. Is that something that students are involved in, and they're involved in running the store and things like that?
Yeah, this year Taylor Moyer, our social studies teacher, he created a curriculum called Gallery and something curation, and it's about framing, hanging, the bookkeeping, how a gallery is run, how a school store is run. The more we turn it over to students, the better we are. So 90% of the time when you walk into that space, there's a student there to greet you and talk to you about the space.
And how, go ahead.
It's an interesting piece of kind of the education as you talk about kind of what those lessons are, right? Not every one of those students that goes through that program is going to lead or run a gallery.
Right.
But they're going to learn budgeting and finance and accounting and all these other skills to entrepreneurship, skills that help them as an employee, but they're doing it through the guise or the veil of this thing that they love and they care about. And I think, that's some of the magic of TSA is, I'm going to get you to learn this thing that you need to learn.
If you find your passion, you never work a day in your life. You go in there because you're called to go in there.
Yeah.
But not every one of your graduates, I mean, is the goal for every one of your graduates to be a full-time professional artist?
No. The goal is for them to figure out how to do something very well and adapt that or just that to wherever they end up.
Was there an aha moment, meaning coming from the Secor building to where you are now, that you're like, this is going to make it? Or are you wired to think?
Or do you still not think that?
No. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know, especially in this current climate. We could get cut. We could get cuts like crazy. What's going on with TPS right now and the struggles that they're having.
Sure.
Anticipating a $60 million cut. I think our budget's $10 million. Mm-hmm. If you cut 600,000 from it, it'll bring you to your knees.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's always a struggle, but I think creativity is a dominant force with our people.
Mm-hmm. Resilience.
And our people that if we couldn't pay them, would they come in? Yeah, I think they'd come in for a little while till we figured it out. They would be like, okay, we still got to get here.
Yeah.
And that's the spirit of the whole place.
How many kids?
I feel like this kind of transitions well. I heard a story. I'll let you tell the real story here, but where did the mascot from Toledo School for the Arts, so what is it and where did it come from?
It's kind of become legend. Marty Porter was, when you're a charter school, which is what we are, we call it a community school, because I think it explains it a lot better. It wasn't my idea to call it a community school, but we definitely embrace that. Community schools have to have a sponsor. And we approached a local school system about being our sponsor at one point, and one of the people said there'll be an art school in Toledo when pigs fly, and so Marty Porter would always tell that story, and so now we have a big flying pig that was created in Toledo by Graphite Design Build. That's 15 years in the making. We've been talking about that pig forever, and here's what's amazing.
And you just put it on the roof of the school.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Here's what's amazing. The kids are so astute at our school about financing and such things. They come to me from the school paper wanting to know how we paid for that pig. Why would we spend so much money on that pig? And what did it cost? What did it cost to put up there? How much did it cost for that crane to come in and all that hoopla? And they want to know why. They want us to be responsible.
Sure.
They want us to be responsible for that. And luckily, I knew that was going to come, so we ran a little campaign with, I call them the OG, the original people that started the place.
Yeah.
And they love the pig idea. They love the mascot. And I called it Paying for the Pork, a little Paying for the Pork campaign.
Love it.
And we raised all the money to create the pig and do all the stuff to put it up there. The kids got to watch it be built, which is just
it's got to be
Graphite's such a cool place.
It's got to be a bit of a point of pride, but also a bit of I feel like a bit of a middle finger to the folks that doubted it, right? To see now what TSA has done. I mean, you guys have, and again, take state ratings with a grain of salt, right? When you're in your favor, we love them. When they aren't, we don't talk about them as much. But the reality is, there's some truth to you guys being named. I think at one point you were named, one of the best, if not the best, charter schools in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
That's something that's a point of pride. You have to say, not only are pigs flying, but the pigs are soaring.
Yeah. We would never put our middle finger up at someone, but
brief pause.
Obviously.
Yes, right. And you won't be the last one today.
What did I do when I came in today?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
you did.
yeah.
What's TSA's relationship with the other cultural organizations in the community? I know a little bit about the one with the Arts Commission, but with Art Museum and individual artists, places like Graphite Design and Build, and how do you foster those relationships?
Well, We had to define some of them because a corporation can't be an Artner. And Artner is another nonprofit with education as part of their mission. So when Marty Porter started the school, he looked at everybody's annual report and the orchestra, the ballet, and said, so I see here that it says education, what do you do? Well, we have these people that come out to the schools. Yeah, I want that. Can you bring us that? And it was an interesting paradigm shift because we ran this partnership program for years. Board members were involved in it. And one year, we omitted by mistake in the Artner list the Toledo Symphony. And we got a call. And we were like, oh, this partnership is as important to them as it is to us.
I understand that. Yeah.
And we went to the AFP, Association of Fundraising Professional Awards, last week, or a few weeks ago. And I was blown away that we were able to buy a table. You know, we've been doing it for a few years. But when you think about when we started, we couldn't even go to that party. We weren't even allowed in that party. And we sponsored a table. We threw an extra few dollars to sponsor a table. And our ads were with the museum.
Yeah.
You know, Live Arts Toledo. I don't remember who else, but I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you belong in these spaces.
In this, the art and creation compound that you built on 14th and Adams, is there another medium that you've fallen in love with, or it's become particularly compelling to you since you've been immersed in all of it?
Personally?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're a music guy.
I learn something new every day.
Cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And people will use words. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And
well, that part doesn't
that's what the
surprise
kids go through. That's the beauty of the place.
Yeah.
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 What's next for TSA?
We are really trying to refine the work that we do at the portal. We have a new artistic director who is looking deeply into the CTE aspect, career tech education, and expanding that. And I think the whole, we're just going to keep doing it. You know, we're going to add 20 more kids per year. For the next 2 years, we'll be 840 kids.
How about that?
2 years from now, we'll be at capacity. And that's why we built that space.
So
we own the whole building now. You know, we don't share it with anybody. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You are an educator. It's time for us to flip the script on you a little bit. We've got a quiz for you.
Spell entrepreneur. And I wouldn't know if you're right anyway.
Yeah, self-employed.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got our little 419 questionnaire. I think we're still workshopping the name on that.
Yeah, we are.
We'll figure it out. Maybe by the time this airs, we will have already figured it out, and it's going to feel weird for people. But at some point, we're going to know what we call it, and we're going to consistently call it that. But until then, this is Gretchen's Crazy Quiz.
Love it.
I like that. Okay, so the concept obviously is the 419. So we're going to ask you 4 quick answer random questions. And then
First
we're going
thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
This is why we have editors.
Ready?
Yeah.
Finish the phrase, the way to my heart is.
Food.
Okay. Do you think you'd make a good spy?
No.
Why?
That's exactly what a good spy would
No,
say.
that was one question.
I can't keep a secret.
Okay, and your first celebrity crush?
Me.
I can't even think right now. Twiggy.
Okay. Awesome. And how does someone know if you're mad?
My face gets redder than it normally is.
Okay.
And I tell them.
Okay. Now the second part of our quiz is the one of the 419. And so we wanted to ask you, what is the number one favorite thing, best thing about for you for Toledo, for the region?
I knew you were going to ask me this.
Yes.
And I got it down to 2.
Okay.
Familiarity is my number one thing.
Okay.
But forgiveness is also butted up against there.
Interesting.
Because, you know, I never thought I'd have a real job. I never thought that I would be serving children at the level that I am, and along with the other people that I work with. And there's a certain level of forgiveness that was needed based on my past behaviors, maybe.
I like that.
Me too.
Okay, and the 9.
We could all use forgiveness.
That's
couldn't we?
right.
Yes.
Matt could.
Yep.
Yeah. Of the 9 of the 419 concept is describe the region from your perspective in 9 words.
Gritty. Helpful. Creative. Vibrant. Steady. Blue collar. Did I say resilient? Are you counting them?
That's 6.
Oh gosh. Industrial.
Okay.
Because if we don't embrace that,
Yeah.
you're going to be miserable.
Ain't no
around here.
doubt.
Where are we? 7?
You have 2 more.
I think
did I say creative?
Blue collar may have counted as 2 words.
Creative, yep.
Thank you.
There you go.
And then creative.
Very good.
He's Dave Gierke. Dave, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us.
Yeah, it was fun.
On the program today. We appreciate the great work you do in the community.
100%.
And everything you're doing with TSA and the arts community. Thank you.
Come visit the portal. You haven't been in it?
I have not been in it
You
yet.
have not been in it. I know you have. I know
have.
you have.
Yep.
And it's where the arts unite with
That's
our
right.
community.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks, Dave.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
We'll be right back to wrap up this episode of the 419.
You laughed with us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure your childhood was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertained, informed, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back to the 419. Man, all right, so we joke with Gretchen that like we never know what we're going to get with her surprise guests.
Yep.
But this was a good one.
It's usually quality, though. You have to admit that.
It also is a nice transition from our mildly depressing opening about
Right.
the climate here.
Yeah.
To Gierke.
You can't be depressed with the Dave Gierke.
That's
in
right.
your midst.
There is no gray skies, I feel like, for
No,
that guy,
no.
right? It's blue
And
skies
just
ahead.
The team there has done, I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
No, I mean that sincerely. There are a couple people in my life that TSA, their words saved their lives.
The culture, the building,
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say for me, for somebody who worked in education, right, it's that, you know, when the less I knew about TSA, the more I was like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Like, I don't like what they're doing. And the more I learn about TSA, the more I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I think they're onto something.
We have to-
And you see, what I liked is the conversation. I don't remember who it was that said it. That Dave said somebody said to him when the suggestion was to put a fence up around the
Yeah.
property, and it was like, well, why don't we just become a part of the community? I imagine if every organization did that, right? Imagine if everybody said, rather than us try to build up a fence, what if we tried to build a community? What that would
Can
look like.
cross off Toledo fence for a possible sponsorship opportunity.
Fences are great. I highly recommend a
We
fence.
are a fence first group here.
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
What,
it's great to learn about what I believed would be an origin story, including being in a band. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that that's confirmed.
what's kind of favorite thing you learned? Quickly.
Well, it's nice to be around Gierke always. I knew most of that, but it's good. It's nice to be able to ask questions about the why or the aha moments. It can seem very easy from the outside that things happen, but they don't just happen.
All right. Thanks for listening. This has been the 419.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.